Man, what a battle this was. What a game this was. Amazing battle, amazing game. I love the fight I saw from these two teams. The game came down to the wire, but at the end of the day, only one team was able to prevail. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Ravens flock, what's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are enjoying your day. Well, of course, I know Ravens flock is enjoying their day because the Ravens got the victory. The Battle of the Beltway took place at M&T Bank Stadium between the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens, and the Ravens were able to get the 30-23 victory. They move up to 4-2 on the season. They keep first place in the AFC North in that tight battle between them and the Steelers. Meanwhile, the Washington Commanders, they do fall to 4-2 after winning 4 straight games. However, they do retain first place in the NFC East, especially because the Cowboys got dog walked today by the Lions. So this loss is not going to affect their overall standings in the NFC East, but it is a loss. You take it on the chin and you move forward and you continue on with your season. This was a great game, man. This was a great game. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to how the entire week's been going, they hyped the hell out of this game. With the way they were hyping this game and the way they were talking about this game, you would have thought this was a Super Bowl matchup right here. This was game of the year level hype from this game. And I'll say for the most part, it does live up to the hype. I don't know if people are going to sit back and say game of the year, but it was a fantastic game. It was a great battle between these two quarterbacks, between these two teams. I loved what I saw. Amazing game. So let's not waste any more time. Let's actually get into it. Let's start out with this guy, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Okay, so Lamar on the day, Lamar was great today. Lamar was fantastic today. Obviously, him being one of the best players in the league, him being a 2-time MVP. We know what Lamar Jackson brings to the table. But obviously, in a game like this, when you're going up against a Commanders team that has the highest scoring offense, you know you're going to have to go toe-to-toe with them and be able to score at a high level. Well, Lamar and the offense were able to do that today. Lamar Jackson on the day, 20 of 26, 323 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a passer rating of 114, and a QBR of 72. Now, with the interception, obviously, if you had watched the game, you would know the interception was not on Lamar's fault. It did bounce off of Mark Andrews' hands. It's one of those unfortunate situations. But at the end of the day, the interception ultimately wasn't the deciding factor in this game for the most part. It's just unfortunate that's on the stat sheet. But Lamar played a fantastic game. He looked great. He played great. Loved what he did. Derrick Henry is still Derrick Henry. And I'm telling you, I will say this every single week. Anybody that sat back and said Derrick Henry was washed, you owe that man an apology. Go fill out an apology form and send it to Derrick Henry. Because if you thought this guy was washed, you were clearly wrong. And if you were not paying attention to what the Ravens were doing with him in the first 2 weeks compared to how they've been using him since, then it's clear as day you didn't understand the reason why he was not that productive in the first 2 weeks for the Ravens. He has been killing it. Once again, another great performance by King Henry. 24 carries, 132 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry becomes the first running back to score a rushing touchdown in the first 6 games of the season since 1970. The guy has been fantastic. He's been great. He's been a fantastic addition to this offense. And man, he is a fantastic closer. And he would go on to help close this game out as well. Derrick Henry's great. Love what I see from him. The Ravens, for the most part, were able to run the ball effectively here, but the Commanders' defense did a good job in trying to contain Derrick Henry as much as possible. Lamar also ran for 40 yards in this game. He had a huge scamper for 33, but for the most part, Lamar wasn't really looking to take off in this game. Overall, the Ravens did rush for 176 yards, so once again, they're keeping up that streak of running for over 100 yards, which they're approaching that 43-game mark that they've tied with the Steelers from, the 1970s. They're approaching that tie. They had that 43 and weren't able to break the record. They might break the record this time because of Derrick Henry, man. It's just been crazy. But, yeah, they've kept that streak going, and they actually managed to run for over 175 yards yet again. They got 176 yards in this game. For the receivers, man, this was a great game for the Ravens receivers, man. Zay Flowers was balling out. He did pretty much all of his damage in the first half. 9 catches, 132 receiving yards for him. His longest was 44. The guy was just diamond dealing. Back-to-back games of 100 yards receiving from Zay Flowers. He's starting to get in the groove. We're starting to see him make more of an impact here on the offense. He looked great. What also worked out was the fact that Lamar was willing to spread the ball with everybody. Rashad Bateman, he's your wide receiver too. You want to see him start to show up and do things more. He got involved in the game. 4 catches, 71 yards. He was doing his thing. Mark Andrews, the return of Mark Andrews, man. 3 catches, 66 yards, and he finally found the end zone. His first touchdown of the season. He looked great. Yeah, 2 catches for 27 yards with Isaiah Likely, 1 catch for 25 yards with Nelson Aguilar, and then Justice Hill, he had a catch as well. So offensively, the Ravens did what they needed to do. What was special about what the Ravens offense was doing was they were moving the ball at will. They were moving the ball at will. But the 2 biggest drives that needs to be talked about for the Ravens offensively were the 2 longest scoring drives for them. The 93-yard scoring drive and then the 94-yard scoring drive. They were getting the ball starting off deep into their own territory. And they were just methodically moving the ball down the field with virtually no issues against the Commanders' defense. They were moving the ball down the field. They scored like 6 straight possessions. They legitimately scored in 6 straight possessions. They were great. Love what I saw from the offense. Defensively, honestly, this is a much better performance than what you've seen compared to last week, obviously, when they let Joe Burrow throw for 5 touchdowns and Jamar Chase to cook them for nearly 202 touchdowns. This was a much better game because you're going up against the number 1 scoring offense in the league. They're averaging 31 points a game, and you held them to 23. Now, again, there's still some issues with the secondary. The secondary at times was continuing to get cooked, and I gotta say, man, we'll probably have to speak about it when we make our therapy session this week, man. Marcus Williams is just, he just looks done. I don't know what he's doing out there. He looks done. He's not doing anything. Can't cover, can't make tackles, not making plays. He's just a guy. He's just a guy out there. He might be less than a guy because he's not making any sort of impact on the field. It's crazy. Marcus Williams looks cooked. Brandon Stevens is playing good coverage, but he keeps getting beat. I don't know what you do in that situation when the corner is actually playing good coverage, but they're getting beat. Now, there was a few times where he got caught lacking, and Terry McLaurin just ran right past him and got open. So there were a few mistakes by Brandon Stevens, and I think people are starting to get tired by those mistakes happening consistently with Stevens. But I don't know what he could do in this situation, given the fact that he's playing these receivers tightly. You're seeing tight coverage by these receivers. He's right there with the receivers, but they continue to make the plays on him. I don't know what you do. I mean, Terry McLaurin made 2 fantastic catches with tight coverage. One of those being the 4th and goal touchdown. I don't know what you do there if you're Brandon Stevens. Guys are cooking him, but he's right there in coverage. It's unfortunate. Roquan Smith's also getting cooked in the middle of the field. I don't know what you do with that. We keep trying to say switch Trent Simpson to be in that aspect, but they're going to keep putting Roquan there. It is what it is. I just think the defense, for the most part, secondary-wise, they didn't play as bad as they did with the Bengals, but I think they did at least better here. However, there's still issues with the secondary, and there's work that needs to be done there still. They're trying to figure themselves out. Marlon Humphrey was nice. Kyle Hamilton was nice. Nate Wiggins, the rookie, was making some plays, but boy, was he holding quite a bit in this game. I know it was a few times he was holding a little bit. He's a rookie. He's still got to figure it out, but there was some plays where he was right there with the receiver, but he was just holding a bit too much. So, yeah, that's something he's still got to work out for the most part. Run defense shut everything down. Now, of course, the Commanders were missing Brian Robinson, their best back, but Eckler and McNichols can still run the ball effectively, and the Ravens' run defense just shut that down. The pass rush actually did a pretty good job. Now, again, they didn't really sack Jaden Daniels. He only had 2 sacks that counted on him, so they didn't really get him down like that. But the main thing they did was contain him. They played contained. They played contained on the edges. They kept him in the pocket, and they would not let him take off and run. So Jaden Daniels didn't really have a lot of running yards here. They kept him contained. They just said, hey, we're going to keep you in the pocket. That's our best chance to stop you. So the pass rush did their job. Pass rush did their job. Run defense did their job. Secondary did relatively well, but could still use some work. And with both these sides of the football doing one side being great in the offense and the other side doing solid, you were able to get the victory here. On the flip side, for the Commanders, Jaden Daniels showcasing to the world he is for real. He is legit. The Washington Commanders coming out here and showing to the world, we are legit. Our record is not for show. Now, we didn't win this game, but that does not mean we cannot compete with the best of the best. Jaden Daniels, against this Ravens defense, did not blink. 24 of 35, 269 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interception, QBR of 74, passer rating of 110. Jaden Daniels was diming and dealing throughout the game. When he needed to have it the most, he was getting done. That fourth and goal play was the definition of clutch. The Washington Commanders continue to remain perfect when they go for it on fourth down. They've been fantastic and they have been fearless. They're not afraid. This team is for real. They are legit. They can compete with any team in the National Football League, and they showcased that today. Terry McLaurin offensively, man, I'm so happy for Terry. I was afraid they were going to waste their talent. I was really afraid they were going to waste the talent on this team, and I was really afraid for Terry specifically because I thought he was going to continue to rack up good numbers on a bad team with no good quarterback. But Terry, man, he's got a guy, man. He's got a guy to trust in. Jaden Daniels was also diming and dealing to everybody. Zach Ertz found himself getting involved in this game. 4 catches, 68 yards for him. Noah Brown was making some nice catches as well. 4 catches, 58 yards. Terry McLaurin, man, 6 catches, 53 yards. Both of the touchdown passes that Jaden Daniels threw was to Terry McLaurin. The first one over the top, man, was beautiful, but the second one on fourth down was just clutch. Just fantastic. Perfect catching. Early on in the game, Jaden Daniels took a deep shot to Terry McLaurin, and McLaurin was not able to reel that in. After that drop, Terry locked in, and he was good to go anytime he got the ball near him. So shout out to Terry for what he was doing. Austin Eckler utilized him a couple times with some screens, 4 catches, 47 yards. And, for the most part, the passing game was really there for the Commanders. The receivers were doing their jobs. However, on the flip side of that, the running game was just virtually non-existent. And like I said earlier on, Brian Robinson did not play in this game. And because he didn't play in this game, the running game was heavily affected because he's their best runner. Austin Eckler is their screen guy. McNichols is also good, but he's not Brian. He's decent, but he's not Brian Robinson. And Jaden Daniels was being contained. So when you combine all those aspects, you get a situation where the Commanders rush for 52 yards. Now, Baltimore is the number 1 rushing team in football. The Commanders are number 2. They run the football. They dominate you by running the football. They were not able to do that today because they didn't have Brian Robinson. Now, granted, just because they can't run the football doesn't mean they can't pass. And Jaden Daniels obviously showcasing he can with the best of them. So they weren't too worried about not being able to run. But again, being able to run is an element that benefits the Commanders. That's their strength. That's how they're able to dominate teams. So not being able to run, just put the ball in the hands of Jaden Daniels and had him go out there and try to help you. And he did a damn good job doing that. But yeah, Jaden Daniels, 6 carries, 22 yards. Really wasn't able to take off and do much here. Eckler, 9 carries, 21 yards. McNichols, 2 carries, 9 yards. The running game really wasn't doing much here. Now, for the Commanders' offense, they did exactly what they needed to do. Put points up and play a clean game. Not a single turnover happened with the Commanders, which is exactly what they needed. But again, when you're playing with Baltimore, man, those possessions matter. And it was one of those days where the Commanders did have to punt the ball a few times. We've seen throughout the season they've been dominant, and they don't really punt the ball like that. They had to punt the ball a few times today. And those extra punts, they led to some points being given up by the defense. Speaking of the defense, man, shout out to the Commanders defense, specifically their front seven. Man, Derrick Henry's the tank, and you got to do the very best you can. But boy, did these guys come out there and do everything possible to try to make a stop. They got a pick on the first drive, so that helped out. And then they did a good job in trying to contain Derrick Henry as much as possible. I'm telling you, with the way the Commanders' defense was playing Derrick Henry and the way they were playing the run game, if these guys didn't lock in and commit the way they did, Derrick Henry would have gone for 200-plus yard rushing. He would have gone for 200-plus yards rushing. And it's crazy because Derrick Henry finished with what, 130? 132? So they held him to that. He could have had well over 200 yards rushing if the Commanders' defense didn't lock in the way they did. And they stopped a lot of potential big runs from happening. This game could have got ugly real quick if the run defense was not showcasing itself. So shout out to them. I think the linebackers and the pass rushing unit also did a good job. They only sacked Lamar twice, but I think they did a relatively good job in trying to bring pressure and just try to force Lamar to try to make a mistake, which he really didn't. But I think the linebackers did a solid job, and especially when it came to tackling in space. The main problem with the Commanders' defense is the same problem that's been here for years now. The secondary. Oh, my God, the secondary. Dude, St. Jude was awful. He was awful. The secondary as a whole was not great. They're one of the worst pass defenses in football. They're also terrible, just like Baltimore's pass defenses. But, man, St. Jude just... Oh, man. Of course, Forbes didn't play, but if Forbes would have played, I don't know how much of a difference that would have made. He would have probably got cooked as well. St. Jude was getting cooked by everybody. Bateman cooked him. Flowers cooked him. He was getting cooked. He was trying to make covers over the middle. The tight ends were cooking him. St. Jude was just getting cooked all day. He kept giving up big plays. My goodness. Pass defense wasn't great. It wasn't great. If Washington wants to get to the heights they dream of getting to, they've got to address the secondary in the draft next year. I mean, I would sit back and say before the trade deadline, if you're Washington, the offense is fine. You don't need any more weapons. The defense, front seven's fine, linebacker's fine. If you're Washington and you're watching what this team's doing right now, and you think they have a chance to do something special, potentially win the division, make the playoffs, and maybe go on a run, if you truly believe that in the DMV, they have to go get a corner. They need to spend this trade deadline. Call up some teams. Call up those teams that have their seasons already getting ready to be over. Those one-win teams. The Commanders need to go to work now before the trade deadline. They need to trade for a corner. This cannot continue to happen. If they truly want to be something special this year and think they actually have a chance to compete, they've got to go and trade for a corner. You can address corner in the draft in the offseason, but you're not in the offseason right now. You've got to go get a corner if you're the Commanders. Simple as that. Other than that, it was a tightly contested game for the most part. Opening drive for the Ravens. Unfortunately, that streak of them scoring a touchdown on the opening drives ended there because prior to that interception to Mark Andrews, in regards to Mark Andrews, the Ravens had scored an opening drive in every single game this season. That ended it right there. The pick happened. It is what it is. Commanders were able to get 3 points off of it. Baltimore goes down the field, scores a touchdown. Defense starts making some stops. Baltimore kicks a field goal, makes it a 10-3 game. Washington responds by going down the field and scoring a touchdown. Just before halftime, Ravens go up 17-10. They scored a touchdown. Coming out of halftime, before halftime, Commanders went down the field, got into field goal range, would have had a field goal, but Ben Cleveland blocked the kick, so they go to halftime 17-10. Come out of halftime 17-10, go down the field, get to field goal range again. They kick a field goal, 17-13. Excuse me. Baltimore gets the ball. They go down the field. They kick a field goal, 20-13. Commanders get stopped. Baltimore gets it again. They go down the field, make it 27-13. Commanders in a do-or-die situation where they have to respond. They go down the field, score a touchdown, make it 27-20. Baltimore kicks a field goal, make it 30-20. Commanders go down the field, get into a field goal range, make it 30-23. Baltimore gets the ball back, kills the clock, game over, and that is pretty much your recap for this game. So, Baltimore gets the 30-23 victory. They go to 4-2. Commanders lose. They go down to 4-2. Both these teams are going to walk out of this week first in their division, so I don't think it's a situation where you look at it too bad, especially because the Cowboys took a huge L to the Lions. You're okay if you're the Commanders. But like I said, Commanders, if you're serious about this, please go and trade for a corner. Do that. Trade deadline. You don't need a linebacker. You don't need anybody in the front seven. You don't need an offensive player. Go and look for a corner in the trade deadline. Go get a corner. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. For me personally, I enjoyed the game. I already knew how this was going to be. It was one of the chillest streams I've ever had. Because again, I was going to be calm, cool, and collected and be happy with however this game would have gone. If you know my story, if you know, I've talked about it plenty of times on this channel. You know, I root for both these teams. I'm a Ravens fan, but I'm always going to show love and support to the DMV. And especially now that I'm with them, I obviously got to show that extra love as well to the Commanders. So I would have been fine with any result. If the Commanders would have came out here, you would see me talking about the resiliency of this team and how they were able to go on the road against a big contending team in Baltimore and pull off the upset. Unfortunately, they weren't able to pull off the upset from them, but they're still going to be fine at 4-2. They'll still be first in the division at the end of this week, and then you just move on to the Panthers and get ready for that. Ravens obviously needed to win this because, you know, they're trying to keep up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh have made some mistakes the last couple of weeks, but they were able to get the victory today against the Raiders, so they're also 4-2. Baltimore's trying to keep that first place title, so they needed to win this game. After starting 0-2, the Ravens are 4-2. Won 4 straight. They beat the Cowboys, they beat the Bills, they beat the Bengals, they beat the Commanders. Next week, they're going to Tampa Bay for Monday Night Football. So it should be a good one. Baker's been dealing. He did numbers, man. He did numbers on that Saints team. Had 4 touchdowns, but also had 3 interceptions, so it is what it is. But they dropped 51 points on them, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I got to say here. Shout out to Lamar Jackson. Shout out to Jaden Daniels. It's a great thing to have 2 great quarterbacks playing in Maryland. Yeah. People don't count Baltimore in the DMV, but I'm just going to say in Maryland. Because one plays in Baltimore, the other plays in Landover. That's just how it is. So 2 great quarterbacks in this area, man. It's just great to see. And for the first time in my lifetime, I can sit back and say the Ravens are a good football team and the Commanders are a good football team. Now, of course, the exception was 2012, RG3's rookie year. But people forget at times that there was some shaky moments and they had to start going on a run. And when they started to go on a run, that's when they started to look like it. Meanwhile, the Commanders have been off to a hot start, and hopefully they keep this up. We'll see what happens, though. Love both teams, love both quarterbacks, love what I'm seeing happening here. It's great to just have good football in Maryland as a whole, and it's just great to see. With that being said, that's all I've got. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Be sure to stay safe, and peace out.